200 years had passed since humanity's departure. The research station, Prometheus, orbited a distant star at the edge of human space. Its purpose was peaceful, studying a unique pulsar that emitted strange radiation patterns. Rebecca Powell stood at her engineering console, monitoring the station's systems. At 38, she was the chief engineer responsible for keeping the station running smoothly. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail as she worked. "Energy readings are stable," she reported to the station director. "The new sensors are capturing data beyond our expectations." The director nodded, pleased. The station housed 50 researchers from Earth, Mars, and Europa, along with 10 scientists from handshake accord species. Their work could help understand the fundamental forces of the universe. No one expected the attack. The first warning came from the automated defense system. 7 ships had appeared from hyperspace, council vessels with weapons charged. "This is Commander Dravkos of the Galactic Council Enforcement Division," came the transmission. "Your research violates Council restrictions on advanced technology. Surrender the station, or we will open fire." Alarms blared throughout the station. The director opened a channel. "This is Director Mason of the Human Research Station Prometheus. We are conducting peaceful scientific research in neutral space. We have no hostile intentions. You have 1 minute to begin evacuation procedures," Dravkos replied. "The station will be destroyed." Rebecca's hands flew over her console. "They're targeting our main power core," she reported. "Standard shields won't hold against weapons of that caliber." The director looked grim. "Begin evacuation. Get everyone to the escape pods." But Rebecca hesitated. "Sir, permission to activate the phase shield." The director's eyes widened. The phase shield was new technology, never used in a real-world situation. It represented decades of human innovation and would reveal capabilities they had kept hidden. "Do it," he ordered after a moment's thought. "Save the station." As council ships moved into attack position, Rebecca entered a complex series of commands. Deep within the station, systems that had lain dormant activated. "Phase shield active," she announced. Outside, the council ships opened fire. Powerful energy beams struck the station, but instead of impacting the hull, they seemed to pass through it, as if the station wasn't fully there. On his command ship, Dravkos stared in disbelief. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Why isn't there damage?" His weapons officer looked confused. "The beams are passing through the station, sir. It's as if it's partially out of phase with normal spacetime." Dravkos ordered another barrage. Again, the weapons passed through the station with no effect. The humans had developed shield technology that operated on principles totally unknown to Council science. Inside the station, Rebecca maintained the shield. "It's working perfectly," she said, relief clear in her voice. "They can't touch us." The director made a decision. Open a channel to all nearby systems, Council, Handshake, and Independent alike. Broadcast everything that's happening here. The station's communication officer complied. Soon, ships across dozens of systems were receiving live footage of the unprovoked Council attack and the station's miraculous defense. After an hour of futile attacks, Dravkos ordered his ships to withdraw. The damage was done, not to the human station, but to the Council's reputation. Their attempted destruction of a peaceful research facility was now known throughout the galaxy. In the Council chambers, emergency sessions were called. More species threatened to leave. The militant faction led by Dravkos lost support as members realized they had nearly started a war they couldn't win. President Alan Delgado addressed humanity and the galaxy from Earth. His message was simple but powerful. "Today's unprovoked attack demonstrates why we chose our own path 2 centuries ago. Humanity seeks peaceful coexistence with all species, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Our technology is not a threat unless made to be one. We extend a hand in friendship to all who wish to join us in exploring the universe together rather than controlling it." Across the galaxy, species that had watched from the sidelines for decades began to make their choice. The balance of power had shifted, and it had happened because humanity had walked away. 180 years after the departure, the Grand Chamber of the Council fell silent as 5 representatives formally announced their withdrawal. The Litterans, Vex, Zolta, Prill, and Norva, all species that had joined the Council within the last 1,000 years, were leaving to join the human-led handshake accords. Supreme Leader Galvor watched them go, his outer membrane pulsing with barely controlled anger. The Council, which had stood unchallenged for 50,000 years, was crumbling. "This cannot continue," said Commander Dravkos, the Council's military leader. His metallic skin reflected the chamber's lights as he moved. "We must contain the human influence before more defect." Across the chamber, Kelvar, now one of the senior scientists in the Council, disagreed. "Containment has failed. Every attempt to restrict human movements has been bypassed. Their technology operates on principles we still don't understand." "Then we must strike directly at their heart," Dravkos said. "A decisive military action against Sol itself." Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was a drastic step, but many felt it was necessary. Kelvar rose to his full height. "Such action would be a mistake. Instead of fighting the humans, we should be learning from them." The debate raged for days. Eventually, the Council split into 2 factions: those who supported military action, led by Dravkos, and those who advocated for cooperation, led by Kelvar. On Earth, in the Grand Meeting Hall of New Geneva, Greg Mitchell prepared for his mission. At 55, he had spent his life studying the Council and its structure. Now he would face them directly. "The Council has approved your request to address them," said his assistant, Carla Vega. "But security will be tight. They fear what you might say." Greg nodded. "They should. The truth is always frightening to those who have built their power on lies." 3 days later, Greg stood before the full Council assembly. Hundreds of aliens watched him with a mixture of fear, hatred, and curiosity. A single human, standing in a place where none had stood before. "Members of the Galactic Council," Greg began, his voice steady. "I come with an offer." He explained that humanity was willing to share certain technologies with the Council: medical advances, energy production methods, even some aspects of their unique propulsion systems. But there was a condition. "The Council must reform," Greg said. "A hierarchical system that places founding species above all others must end. All members must have equal standing and equal voice." Outrage erupted among the senior Council members. What Greg proposed would strip them of the special privileges they had enjoyed for millennia. But among junior members, his words found fertile ground. "This is the choice before you," Greg continued when the noise died down. "Evolve or become irrelevant. The galaxy is changing. The handshake accords grow stronger each day." As Greg left the chamber, Kelvar approached him privately. "You know they won't accept," the alien scientist said. Greg nodded. "Not yet, but we've planted the seed. When 3 more species leave the Council next month, they'll begin to reconsider." Kelvar's eyes widened. 3 more are leaving. "How can you know this?" Greg smiled slightly. "Because they've already approached us. The Council's foundation is cracking, Kelvar. What replaces it depends on all of us." Back in his quarters, Dravkos reviewed battle plans. If the politicians wouldn't act, he would. A strike force was being assembled in secret, ships loyal to his faction that would attack a human research station. It would be the first blow in what he saw as an inevitable war. "The humans think they've changed the rules of the game," he told his officers. "But some things remain constant. Superior military force still decides the fate of civilizations." What Dravkos didn't understand, what the Council had never understood, was that humans hadn't just changed the rules. They were playing an entirely different game. 150 years had passed since humanity chose isolation. The galaxy was now facing a new reality. Humans had established relationships with 15 non-Council species. Together, they formed what became known as the Handshake Accords, a loose alliance based on equal treatment and free exchange of ideas. Olivia Rivera stepped onto the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Unity. At 43, she represented Earth in the most important meeting of her career. Through the large window, she could see the Council's massive station. It looked like a metal flower with 27 petals, one for each member species. "Are you ready?" asked her aide, a young man named Ryan Cole. "As ready as anyone can be for this," Olivia replied, straightening her simple blue uniform. The Council had finally requested formal talks with humanity after decades of failed attempts to understand or contain human expansion. Their ships couldn't intercept human vessels, which seemed to step through space in ways their sensors couldn't track. Their attempts to isolate human allies had failed. Now they wanted to talk. 2 hours later, Olivia sat in a large circular room facing 7 Council representatives. The aliens varied in size and form. Some had multiple limbs. Others hovered above their seats. One was a swirling mass of gaseous material inside a special container. In the center sat Jace Cree, the Council's chief diplomat. Tall and insect-like, his compound eyes reflected the room's light in rainbow patterns. "We appreciate your willingness to meet," Jace Cree began. "It has been a source of great concern that humans have spread beyond their agreed boundaries." Olivia smiled slightly. "We never agreed to those boundaries. We chose isolation to develop in our own way, not to be imprisoned forever. The Council's restrictions were for your protection and for galactic stability," another representative said. "Were they?" Olivia asked. "Or were they to maintain the Council's power structure?" The meeting continued for hours. The Council representatives asked numerous questions about human technology. How had they achieved faster-than-light travel without using quantum pathways? How did their ships appear and disappear without detection? Olivia explained very little, but made one thing clear. Humanity had developed what they called orthogonal technology, advancement along paths the Council had never explored. "You sought to control our development," she told them, "to make us follow your established patterns. When we walked away, we were forced to think differently." "And now?" Jace Cree asked. "What do humans want from the galaxy?" "The same thing we wanted 150 years ago. To explore, to learn, to grow. But now we can do it as equals, not as your subjects." After the meeting, Olivia returned to her ship. As they prepared to depart, Ryan showed her a message from Earth. "2 more species have requested to join the Handshake Accords," he said. "Both are current Council members." Olivia nodded. The Council was losing its grip. Their hierarchical structure, with founding species at the top and newer members at the bottom, was being challenged by the human model of equal partnership. Back on the Council station, Jace Cree met with his fellow leaders in private. "They've surpassed us," said one, a being of living crystal. "In just 150 years, they've developed technology we can't even understand." "Not surpassed," Jace Cree corrected. "They've gone sideways. They don't think like us." Another Council member, a small creature with 6 eyes, spoke up. "We should have destroyed them when they first emerged from Sol." "We tried," Jace Cree reminded them. "Our weapons couldn't even target their ships. We don't understand their defensive systems any better than their propulsion." As the Unity traveled away from the Council station, Olivia watched the stars streak past in patterns that defied conventional physics. Humanity had indeed found its own path. They hadn't been catching up to the Council all these years. They had been forging an entirely different road through the cosmos. "Where to next?" Ryan asked. "Home," Olivia said. "We've made our point. Now we prepare for what comes next." What came next, no one could predict. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same. 120 years after the departure, the trading outpost of Keldor buzzed with activity. Located at the edge of Council space, it saw traffic from dozens of species. Most were Council members, but some were independent races who maintained cautious relations with the powerful alliance. No one paid much attention to the strange vessel that appeared near the outpost's outer docking ring. It simply wasn't there one moment, and then it was, without using the standard arrival lanes or sending the usual approach signals. The ship was sleek and unfamiliar, with smooth lines and a silver-blue hull that seemed to shimmer slightly in the light of the nearby star. It bore markings in a script that none of the outpost's automatic translators recognized. Inside the outpost control center, Duty Officer Vrex stared at his screens in confusion. Where did that come from? He asked his assistant. There was no hyperspace signature, no quantum fold. Before his assistant could answer, a message came through on the common trading frequency. Keldor Outpost, this is Captain Daniel Wright of the Earth vessel Horizon. We request permission to dock and establish peaceful contact. Silence fell across the control room. Earth, humans, the species that had walked away from the Council over a century ago. The species that had voluntarily isolated itself to its home system. How did they get here? Someone whispered. Sol is over 2,000 light years away. After hurried communications with outpost security, Vrex granted the human vessel permission to dock. News spread quickly through the station. By the time Captain Wright and his small crew of 6 emerged from their ship, a crowd had gathered to see the impossible visitors. Daniel Wright was a tall man with dark skin and short black hair touched with gray at the temples. He wore a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons. He smiled as he approached the outpost officials. "Thank you for your welcome," he said, speaking through a small device that translated his words. "We come in peace and friendship." The outpost commander, a Vorn named Kazalar, stepped forward. The Vorn were not council members, choosing to remain independent despite pressure to join. "How did you get here?" Kazalar asked directly. "Your species is confined to the Sol system." Daniel's smile didn't waver. "We were confined. We aren't anymore." Over the next few hours, the humans met with the outpost's leaders. They explained nothing about their technology, but made clear their intentions. They wished to establish diplomatic and trade relations with non-council species. Word of the human arrival spread faster than light through the galaxy's communication networks. The council called an emergency session. More reports came in. Human ships had appeared simultaneously at 4 other locations beyond council space. All made the same offers of friendship and trade to non-council worlds. On the council's central world, Supreme Leader Galvor addressed the assembled representatives of 27 species. "How have they done this?" he demanded. "Our monitoring stations around Sol report no unusual activity, no ships leaving the system." Science advisor Kelvar, now promoted after his years studying human activity, stepped forward. "They must have developed a completely new form of faster-than-light travel," he said, "one that doesn't use the quantum pathways we rely on." "Impossible," said another council member. "There is no other way to move faster than light." Kelvar spread his 4 arms in a gesture of uncertainty. "The evidence suggests otherwise." Back at Keldor Outpost, Captain Wright and his crew shared a meal with the Vorn leaders. They spoke of Earth, of Mars, of the flourishing colonies throughout the Sol system. They mentioned nothing of their technology. As the meeting concluded, Kazalar asked the question everyone wanted answered. Why now? Why emerge after more than a century? Daniel looked thoughtful before answering. "We needed time," he said simply. "Time to develop our own path, free from outside influence. The Council wanted to control our development, to make us follow their road. We chose to make our own. And now," Daniel smiled again, "now we're ready to rejoin the galaxy. But on our terms, not theirs." Across the stars, the news continued to spread. Humanity had returned, and nothing would be the same again. 100 years had passed since humanity chose isolation. The Sol system was now unrecognizable to what it had been during first contact. Earth had healed, its forests regrown, its oceans teeming with life once more. Mars had been partially terraformed, with the first open-air parks now flourishing under its pinkish sky. Europa's underwater cities housed over 10 million people. Lucy Peterson stood on the observation deck of Chimera Station, floating in orbit around Jupiter. Below her, the gas giant's swirling storms created patterns of orange and white. Her great-grandmother had been a key politician during the departure era. Now Lucy carried on that legacy as the lead scientist of humanity's most ambitious project. "Final system check complete," said a voice behind her. "All components are functioning at optimal levels." Lucy turned to face Ben Martinez, her chief engineer. "Any unusual energy signatures that might alert the council?" Ben shook his head. "Nothing that would stand out from normal operations. We're keeping everything contained just as planned." Project Chimera represented the culmination of a century of human innovation. Traditional physics said it should be impossible. The council's science claimed it couldn't exist. Yet here it was, nearly complete after decades of work. "Director Wallace is on the line for you," Ben said, handing Lucy a communication tablet. Lucy accepted the call. Harold Wallace's face appeared on screen. At 75, he was one of the oldest serving members of the solar government. "Tell me some good news, Lucy," Wallace said, lines crinkling around his eyes. "We're ready for the final test," she replied. "If all goes well, we'll achieve full activation within the week." Wallace's expression grew serious. "The Council Observer Fleet has increased patrols near Saturn. They've detected something, but can't identify what." "That's expected," Lucy said. "They know we're up to something. They just don't know what it is." After ending the call, Lucy walked with Ben to the heart of the station, a massive chamber containing a device unlike anything humanity had built before. It didn't rely on conventional energy or follow standard physical laws. Instead, it operated on principles discovered during humanity's century of isolated development. "It's beautiful," Lucy whispered as they stood before the gently pulsing core. Beyond the Sol system, on the Council's primary monitoring vessel, Science Officer Kelvar analyzed the strange readings coming from Jupiter's orbit. "The energy patterns defy classification," he told Admiral Zex. "It's not antimatter, not dark energy, not anything in our database." The Admiral, a veteran of the initial contact with humans, clicked his mandibles in irritation. "How can they have developed something we can't even identify? They were primitives barely off their home planet when we found them." "Perhaps," Kelvar suggested carefully, "isolation forced them to think differently, to explore paths we never needed to." "Or it's nothing," the Admiral replied. "A failed experiment. These humans have rejected our guidance. They're probably struggling to survive." Kelvar wasn't convinced. He had studied humans for decades, and one thing was clear: they didn't follow expected patterns. Back on Chimera Station, Lucy gave the order to begin the final test sequence. Technicians moved with practiced precision, activating systems that represented a century of human ingenuity. "Phase alignment stable," Ben reported. "Harmonic resonance established." Lucy took a deep breath. "Initiate primary sequence." The station hummed with power as the core began to glow more intensely. Displays showed readings climbing steadily. "We've reached threshold," Ben announced, excitement clear in his voice, despite his professional demeanor. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a small sphere of swirling light formed in the center of the core. It wasn't bright or flashy, just a quiet distortion of reality itself. Lucy smiled. Project Chimera is operational. On the Council vessel, alarms suddenly blared. Kelvar rushed to his instruments, trying to make sense of the readings. "Something just happened," he told the Admiral. "A momentary distortion in space-time." "What does it mean?" the Admiral demanded. Kelvar stared at his screens, a mixture of fear and admiration in his eyes. "It means the humans have discovered something new, something we never taught them, something we never even imagined." In the silence that followed, both aliens knew that the galaxy had just changed forever. 50 years had passed since humanity's departure. The Sol system looked very different now. Earth's skies were clearer, its oceans cleaner. The Mars colony had grown to house 3 million people, and Europa's underwater city now stretched for miles beneath the icy surface. Sam Hartwell walked through the underground research complex on Mars, his footsteps echoing on the polished stone floor. At 42, he led what many considered humanity's most important project, deep innovation. "Any updates from the outer sensors?" Sam asked as he entered the main lab. Natalie Green looked up from her workstation. Her dark skin contrasted with the white lab coat she wore. "The Council ships are still there. Same positions as yesterday and the day before that." Sam nodded. The alien monitoring stations had remained at the edge of the Sol system for 5 decades, watching, waiting for humanity to either beg for admission to the Council or attempt to break out. They had done neither. "They must be confused by now," Sam said with a small smile. "Confused isn't the word I'd use," came a voice from the doorway. Dr. Ellie Wu entered carrying a tablet. "According to our last intercept, they're completely baffled." The team had become experts at passively monitoring Council communications. They learned the aliens had expected humans to either collapse without their help or to develop along predictable technological lines that would eventually trigger Council intervention. Instead, humanity had done something unprecedented. They had turned inward, focusing on solving their own problems in ways the Council never anticipated. "Have you seen the latest from Project Mirror?" Ellie asked, handing Sam her tablet. Sam scrolled through the data, his eyes widening. "This can't be right. The energy output is 10 times what we predicted." Natalie joined them, looking at the numbers over Sam's shoulder. "It works. The prototype actually works." Project Mirror was just one of hundreds of research initiatives launched after the departure. Instead of following the technological paths that the Council races had taken, the paths they monitored for, humanity had explored different directions entirely. "We need to tell the director," Sam said. An hour later, they sat in Director Frank Patel's office, deep within Mars Olympus Mons. The room was simple, with a single window looking out at the Martian landscape. Frank had been just a child when the aliens first arrived on Earth. Now in his late 50s, he coordinated all major scientific efforts across the solar system. "So you've proven the concept works," Frank said after they explained their findings. "What's the next step?" Natalie leaned forward in her chair. "We need to scale it up. The energy signatures will be noticeable, even to the Council's sensors, but they won't understand what they're seeing. It's completely outside their technological framework." Frank walked to his window and looked at the red landscape. "Do it, but keep the emissions as low as possible for now. We're not ready to show our full hand yet." In the vastness of space beyond Neptune's orbit, a Council observation vessel drifted silently. Inside, Zixta, the alien liaison officer assigned to monitor humanity, reviewed unusual readings from Mars. "Another energy spike," she told her commander. "Different from anything in our database." Commander Vroll's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of frustration. "What are these humans doing? Their development pattern makes no sense." "Perhaps we should request a closer inspection," Zixta suggested. "The Council denied our last 3 requests," Vroll said. "They believe the humans are merely struggling to survive in isolation." Zixta's skin changed color slightly, showing her disagreement. "I don't think they're struggling at all." Back on Mars, Sam, Natalie, and their teams celebrated their breakthrough with a small party. Synthetic champagne flowed as scientists toasted each other. "To Project Mirror," Sam said, raising his glass, "and to all the other projects the Council will never see coming." Natalie clinked her glass against his. "They expected us to follow their path or fail trying. They never considered we might find another way entirely." Sam looked around at the brilliant minds gathered in the room. "The stars are still waiting for us, and when we finally reach them, we'll do it on our own terms." Outside, the red planet spun silently through space, keeping humanity's secrets hidden from watching eyes. The sky above Houston glowed with unusual lights as the alien ships hovered in formation. It had been 3 months since the Galactic Council made first contact with Earth. Similar ships floated above Beijing, Lagos, London, and Rio. A constant reminder that humanity was no longer alone. Amber Kelly stared at her computer screen, eyes burning from lack of sleep. The data didn't lie. She ran her fingers through her short brown hair and looked across the lab at Jack Foster, who was examining the same information. "They're lying to us," Amber said. "The council doesn't want to help us. They want to control us." Jack nodded. "The membership terms are designed to keep us weak." The year was 2187. Earth was struggling with the final stages of climate crisis. The ice caps had mostly melted. Coastal cities survived behind massive walls. Food production barely kept up with demand. Humans had small colonies on Mars and Europa, but nothing that could save the species if Earth became uninhabitable. When the Galactic Council arrived, most people celebrated. The Council represented 27 advanced alien species who claimed to welcome humanity into their interstellar community. Their timing seemed perfect, offering help when Earth needed it most. But Amber and Jack, leading scientists at the Global Space Initiative, had discovered the truth hidden in the fine print of the Council's offer. "Look at these technology restrictions," Jack said, pointing to his screen. "No independent development of faster-than-light travel. No quantum gravity research. No advanced AI beyond certain parameters. And we'd need permission to expand beyond Mars," Amber added. "They're putting a cage around us, just a bigger one than we have now." The Council had presented humanity with two choices: join as the lowest-tier species with heavy restrictions, or abandon all ambitions of space exploration. The aliens claimed these were standard terms for young species, for their own protection and the safety of the galaxy. The world's governments debated the offer for weeks. Public opinion was split. Many saw the Council as saviors, others as conquerors in disguise. Amber and Jack brought their findings to the United Nations emergency session. They showed how other junior species had been kept subservient for centuries, how the Council's real fear was humanity's unusual rate of technological development. The aliens didn't want to help humans. They wanted to contain them. President Diane Rivera stood before the assembled world leaders and the alien representatives. The Council's lead diplomat, a tall, silver-skinned being named Exorthal, waited for humanity's answer. After careful consideration, President Rivera said, her voice steady, "We have reached a decision that may surprise you. We choose neither option you have presented." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. "Humanity will neither join the Council under restrictive terms, nor will we give up our dreams of reaching the stars. Instead, we choose a third path. We will voluntarily isolate ourselves to the Sol system and develop at our own pace without interference." Exorthal's large, multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly. "This is unprecedented. No species has ever rejected Council membership." "Then perhaps it's time someone did," Rivera replied. "We appreciate your offer, but we will find our own way forward." The decision became known as the departure. In the weeks that followed, humanity united in a way it never had before. The challenge of self-sufficiency replaced the promise of alien assistance. New resources were directed to solving Earth's problems without external help. The alien ships eventually left Earth's orbit, but everyone knew they were still watching from afar. The Council placed monitoring stations at the edge of the Sol system, making it clear that humanity would be contained, even if they couldn't be controlled. As Amber watched the last alien ship disappear into the stars, Jack stood beside her. "Do you think we made the right choice?" he asked. Amber smiled slightly. "I don't know. But at least it was our choice. They expected us to either submit or rebel. Nobody expected us to just walk away." "So what happens now?" "Now," Amber said, "we get to work. We have a solar system to save, and the stars will have to wait." 250 years after humanity chose to walk away, Jupiter's largest space station, New Horizon, hosted the most important gathering in galactic history. Representatives from over 50 species arrived in vessels of all shapes and sizes. Among them were members of the fractured council, now reduced to just 12 loyal species, as well as all 28 members of the Handshake Accords. The massive station orbited the gas giant like a shining wheel, large enough to hold thousands of visitors. Its central dome, where the summit would take place, offered a breathtaking view of Jupiter's swirling storms below and the stars above. Kyle Monroe watched the alien ships dock from an observation window. At 48, his hair was starting to gray, but his eyes still held the excitement of discovery that had driven his career. Beside him stood Maria Sanchez, his research partner for the past 15 years. "Are you nervous?" Maria asked, adjusting her formal uniform. Kyle smiled slightly. "A little. We've worked toward this moment for so long." What they were about to reveal had been humanity's most closely guarded secret, the culmination of centuries of independent research. It went beyond the phase drives that allowed human ships to step through space, beyond the defensive shields that had protected the Prometheus station. This was something that would change everything. In the central dome, representatives took their places. Some required special environments: bubbling tanks for water breathers, low-gravity zones for fragile species. Humans had made sure everyone could attend comfortably. President Eliza Reyes opened the proceedings. "Welcome to all who have journeyed here in the spirit of cooperation. Today, humanity wishes to share something with the galaxy, something we believe will benefit all species." She nodded to Kyle and Maria, who stepped onto the central platform. Behind them, a large screen displayed a star old, red, and dying. For millennium, advanced civilizations have faced an unavoidable crisis. Kyle began. "Stars die. When they do, the worlds that orbit them die too. Entire civilizations must abandon their homeworlds or perish." The aliens murmured in agreement. This was a truth all spacefaring races eventually confronted. "We have found another way," Maria continued, "a way to rejuvenate dying stars." Disbelief swept through the audience. What they suggested was impossible according to conventional physics. Even the Council's most advanced scientists had deemed stellar rejuvenation a theoretical impossibility. Kyle activated the display, showing recordings of a series of small probes entering a dying star. The probes carried what humans called dimensional catalysts, technology born from Project Chimera and refined over decades. By introducing these catalysts to a star's core, we can restart fusion processes that have begun to fail, Maria explained. We can extend a star's life by billions of years. The recording showed the red giant beginning to contract, its color shifting from red to yellow as its fusion processes stabilized. The data readings were unmistakable. The star was becoming younger, healthier. The room erupted with questions and exclamations. Representatives pushed forward, demanding to know how this was possible. Council scientists looked stunned. The remaining council leaders appeared deeply uncomfortable. President Reyes raised her hands for quiet. "Humanity offers this technology freely to all worlds, regardless of political alignment. There are no conditions, no demands for alliance or loyalty. This gift belongs to the galaxy." Kelvar, now the Council's senior scientist, approached Kyle after the presentation. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why share this freely when you could use it to dominate?" Kyle looked thoughtful before answering. "Because that's not who we are. When we walked away 2.5 centuries ago, it wasn't to build weapons or gain power. It was to find our own path. And that path led here, to saving stars instead of controlling them." As the summit continued, new agreements were formed. The old council structure finally collapsed entirely, replaced by a more equal galactic congress where all species had equal voice. The galaxy, which had braced for war when humanity reemerged, instead found itself entering an unprecedented era of cooperation and renewal. The unexpected path humanity had taken led not to conflict, but to renaissance. And the stars, which had watched with trepidation when humanity walked away, now shone with renewed promise, literally and figuratively, for all.